Good afternoon and welcome to the Squadron Defense Group's Building an Insider Threat Program seminar. We thank you for attending our event today. I want to introduce our Squadron Defense Group Insider Threat team to you. You have myself, Phil Robinson. We have Mallory Rosino as part of our team, Richard Ray, Don Fulton, Heidi Stanley, Glenda Stroke, and Maria Smith. During the session, at any time, if anyone has any questions, we encourage you to use the Q&A question and answer box, as you'll see on the left-hand side of the WebEx seminar screen. As we go through, we'll be happy to address your questions. We'll also have a session at the end of the presentation to follow up with any Q&A questions that come up. The next slide, our agenda slide. Part of the reason for the session today is to dispense any rumors, misperceptions on the requirements of the DSS's Insider Threat Program. There's some rumor about the implementation date, what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, and what DSS, through the NISPOM requirement, is actually looking for. So we hope to dispense with some of those rumors. Don Fulton will outline what needs to be done, what we will accomplish for you as Squadron Defense, and how we can work together in accomplishing that new requirement. A little background about myself. I'm one of the project team leads here for the Squadron Defense Insider Threat Program. Don Fulton is the other project co-team lead with me. A couple of key takeaways as you read through my bio. One is the NISPOM Change 2 requirements. There were 3 paragraphs that I helped author in the National Industrial Security Program change number 2. The third paragraph, I'm quite proud to say that it was untouched by the government and remains in place as how I had authored that paragraph, so I'm quite pleased with that. The second takeaway is the Insider Threat ISL itself, the Industrial Security Letter that accompanied the Change 2 of the NISPOM. I was part of a very small group of industry representatives invited into the DSS fold to help write and craft and build that Insider Threat ISL framework, which we all have to conform with by 30 November of this year. Next, I'll have Don introduce himself, and then Don will get into the technicalities and the technical pieces of the Insider Threat Program. Don?
Thank you, Phil. You'll see here's the slide that lists my biography. To basically sum everything up, I'm a retired U.S. Army counterintelligence agent. The Insider Threat Program is essentially a counterintelligence program with many parallels to the counterintelligence work that I used to do for the Army. My history includes participation in the full spectrum of counterintelligence operations, so I bring that experience with me and am incorporating it into Squadron Defense Group's Insider Threat Program deliverables and services, and that's basically what I bring to the table for this. Moving right into our presentation, I'm going to start us with the national policy references on insider threats. The first 2 that are listed up there at the top, and by the way, these slides or the bullets here are listed in reverse chronological order, with the first one being at the bottom and the most recent ones being at the top. We've got the ISL and the recent NISPOM change that we're all familiar with. Both of these bring insider threat requirements to industry, but the 3 documents below them are the sources where these requirements come from. The very first document that I want to talk about is the Executive Order 13587. This is where all the requirements for insider threat ultimately flow from. It was released in October of 2011. It has the somewhat unwieldy title of Structural Reforms to Improve the Security of Classified Networks and the Responsible Sharing and Safeguarding of Classified Information. doesn't have a whole lot of specifics on insider threat and really requires two things. The first being that agencies that handle classified information need to create programs designed to detect insider threats, and the second is it mandates the creation of the National Insider Threat Task Force, and that task force is then tasked with creating the specific requirements for everyone to follow and creating those insider threat programs. Now, the task force is comprised of personnel from the U.S. Attorney General's Office, the FBI, the Director of National Intelligence Office, and the National Counterintelligence Executive. The next document up is the National Insider Threat Policy and Minimum Standards. This was released about a year later. It was published by the task force, and it lists out some of the specific requirements for an insider threat program. This document is primarily written for government agencies, but when you look at the NISPOM and this document, you can see how they've made that translation. The next document I want to discuss is the DoD Directive 5205.16. This is the DoD Directive on Insider Threat, and what this document does is it's a short document. There's not a lot in it, but what it does do is require DSS to create insider threat requirements for industry. So here you have the 5 documents that pretty much represent the sum total of the government's policy and directives on insider threat in regards to us as industry, with the executive order, the national policy, DoD, and then the NISPOM. Now, it's helpful to understand what was the driving force behind the executive order, and that's basically Bradley Manning. For those not familiar, he was arrested in 2010. He was charged with the compromise of over 700,000 classified documents. He was ultimately found guilty on 17 counts and has been sentenced to 35 years in prison. Manning was a intelligence analyst for the U.S. Army. He had a top secret clearance with access to SCI. He had this access in spite of having a history of emotional and behavioral problems in the military and outside the military, and he was able to gain access to these documents on SIPRNet and JWIX terminals. He did this in broad daylight in front of his coworkers, often sitting right next to them. So the kind of the pillars of this insider threat program are to prevent a recurrence of that, namely by stressing reporting questionable behavior on behalf of those individuals with security clearances, and then also monitoring individuals' access to classified networks to ensure that they're not taking documents or viewing documents that they should not have access to. So the next slide here is listing the actual requirements that we as contractors have to meet in order to have an insider threat program. And what the NISPOM is requiring us to create is establish and maintain an insider threat program that will gather, integrate, and report relevant and available information. So the specific requirements are listed here, and we're going to go into these in greater detail in the slides ahead, but it's designated an insider threat program senior official, create an insider threat implementation plan, create an insider threat program plan, institute insider threat training, have a system of records management to track that training, and then conduct self-assessments after that. So the first requirement that we're showing here is designate an insider threat program senior official. There are some requirements for this position, namely that this individual will be considered key management personnel. Your senior official will need to be a U.S. citizen. They'll need to be cleared to the same level as your facility, and they're going to need to be on your KMP list, your key management personnel list. There's two ways that we can designate this person. The first, the official one is in EFCL, but we've also created a template for a letter of appointment to provide some paperwork that backs that designation up. The slide here shows a screenshot from the EFCL login page, and it's basically showing you how to actually designate your senior official within EFCL, and it's actually the simplest thing there is, which is check the box that says Insider Threat Program Senior Official. So in order to officially designate your senior official, you'll go into EFCL, open up a change condition package, select your KMP list from the tab, edit that KMP list, and if the individual's not already listed, you'll add their name, and if they are listed, you'll simply find the checkbox for Insider Threat Program Senior Official next to it, select it, then save it and submit it, and you've completed that task. The next action that we'll need to cover is creating an insider threat implementation plan. We've got a template for this document. Most of it will be the same because it lists insider threat program goals and requirements, and then also lays out some of the specific responsibilities of the insider threat program senior official. But the most commonly edited portion of this is going to be the timeline, where we will sit down with you and discuss really the structure of your company and your ability to conduct the training and complete these tasks and the timeline that you feel comfortable with doing these tasks. And this right here is the last section, and it has some arbitrary dates in there, but we can sit down with you and discuss which dates you want and what are realistic goals and milestones that can be achieved prior to that 30 November timeline that we've got. And that's going to be the most significant portion of this document. This document here is the program plan, and this document is going to lay out the actual specifics as to how you're going to create a program that's going to meet those DSS requirements of integrating information from different sources. This is the one that's going to be the most customizable, and we've created a document that's going to be scalable for your company's size and complexity. There's going to be some elements of your company that we're going to have involved. Obviously, security is going to be one. Your senior official is also going to be involved, but you're going to want to also include your human resources department, your IT department as well, any legal counsel that you've got. All of these individuals you'll want to have involved with your insider threat program to help that senior official make decisions as to what course of action you need to take when there's an incident or someone has reported something.
What you're seeing now is an example of a insider threat program plan that I had created with another corporation, and see that as something of value and use. The images you're seeing here in the table and the charts are actually part of an IT infrastructure and how that could incorporate. Again, this plan you're seeing here is for very, very large companies, companies that are highly complex, multiple information systems, thousands of people that are cleared. So that's another offering that we'll have for you as well.
Yeah, and just to kind of give an example of what we're trying to portray in that program plan is to kind of give a description of how we would tackle the surfacing or reporting of some insider threat relevant information. You have an employee that's cleared, there's a security violation. Rather than simply reporting that and moving on, it's asking, the program is going to basically ask us to dig a little deeper and do a little bit of triage on our own. So when you've got someone that, say, they've committed a security violation, the next step would be to reach out to, say, the HR department and find out if there's any other issues involved with this person. Have there been any disciplinary issues at work? Are there issues with their pay or their personal life? And that's really what this program is about, is ensuring that that reporting from all different angles occurs, since that has historically been a weakness in identifying people that are committing espionage. Insider threat training requirements, there's actually going to be 2 requirements for this, and one is to train the personnel that are involved in managing the program. So that's obviously your security staff, your insider threat program senior official. It could include legal counsel, a representative from HR, a representative from the IT department. You may have other individuals that your company also deems involved. There's no necessarily right or wrong answer in this. It's just who do you want involved to help that senior official make decisions on this. So these folks will all have to have the training that's called Establishing an Insider Threat Program for your organization. That training is currently available at the CDSC website. It can be taken, there's 2 paths to it. You can go through STEP and take it there, or you can take a direct link right to it where you don't have to create an account. And this is actually the course of action we recommend. Once you've identified your people, have them take that training so that they're aware of what their responsibilities are. The second training that's required is just the plain insider threat awareness training, and this is required for all your cleared employees and consultants. The slide here shows the requirements for it initially within 30 days, so that's going to be 30 days after a person gets a clearance and or 30 days after they've been hired. And for this year, it's within 30 days of that 30 November deadline for implementing an insider threat program. And then there's a requirement for annual refresher training thereafter. This is pretty much exactly the requirement for our current initial security briefings, an initial briefing within 30 days and then an annual refresher training afterwards. So what we're doing here is we're incorporating this insider threat training into those briefings so that when you give someone an initial security briefing, they've also got their initial insider threat training covered as well. Additionally, we're going to be developing some computer-based training as well so that you can have folks log in and run through slides and get a presentation as well online.
Yeah, let me provide just a real quick update to that. Right now we have, we've surveyed several different computer-based training software tools and models. We've down selected to 2 software systems that we're currently looking at. We expect to have chosen one and implement it by the end of this calendar year. I certainly expect us to have something out though in by 30 November so we can start rolling this into that training.
One of the additional requirements that kind of tags along to that training requirement is records management, and obviously DSS wants us to keep track of who's received their insider threat training and to be able to present that to them. There's no right or wrong answer here. If you've got a system that tracks the employee training, you're certainly welcome to add insider threat to that and use that to track it. Our slide here shows a simple Excel spreadsheet. If you've got a relatively low number of folks, this would also be another way. The acknowledgement certificates for the initial and annual briefings are both amended so that they reference insider threat. You can also just take copies of those and put them in their PCL file. The bottom line is DSS just wants us to be able to keep track, and when they ask, be able to provide numbers as to how many people we've trained on insider threat. And then the last requirement for the program is to do periodic program reviews or self-inspections. DSS has helped us out greatly in this, in that they've issued a new self-inspection handbook, and it includes a section for insider threat. Now, there's a couple of changes that differ slightly from just a standard facility, security facility clearance self-inspection. One is that this is actually now going to be required annually. And the second is that it needs to go through the senior management official. And that senior management official is then going to be the individual who sends that in to DSS and acknowledges that he or she has reviewed it and reviewed the status of his or her company's insider threat program, so that it's, instead of coming simply from the FSO, it's going to need to come from your president, CEO, or director, so that DSS sees that we've got leadership buy-in and emphasis on this program. This slide basically shows you the tasks and deliverables that we've got to accomplish to make this program go from being a requirement to being something that we've actually fully implemented. Obviously, we're going to designate an insider threat program senior official, and we can sit and talk with you and help you identify who's the best person for that position. We can draft up that implementation plan and sit down with you and create a workable timeline with realistic milestones that can be achieved to fully implement the plan. We'll help sit down and talk and create verbiage for the program plan that makes it apparent to DSS that they're able to see that we're going to have multiple folks involved. We're going to be looking at it from an HR perspective, from a counterintelligence perspective, from a legal perspective as well, and that we've got a description of a workable plan that will meet their requirements of integrating different sources of information, making them available to that senior official so that the senior official can make a good decision as to what course of action to take. We'll assist you with creating your insider threat training program and training the insider threat program personnel so that they understand what their roles are, and help you create programs for all your cleared employees and consultants, and then help develop whatever method works best for you to track that training. And then, of course, as usual, we can sit down and conduct a self-assessment, self-inspection with your program. This even allows us to do sort of a two birds with one stone, in that we meet the insider threat requirement of conducting that self-inspection and turning it in, but we may also be able to get just a standard security vulnerability assessment enhancement by having an outside organization help you with your self-inspection. And then we'll help you provide those results to your industrial security representative, and then also when you've got your program plan in place, that needs to be available during any security vulnerability assessments.
Thanks, Don. Next steps. We would encourage you to reach out to your security support specialist here at Squadron Defense Group, discuss your next actions, discuss your way forward. As Don had mentioned, some of those timelines, those targeted timelines, sit with or discuss with your security specialist and look over what makes sense for your implementation, for your company, your size, your complexity, your needs. Again, the goal is the protection of national security information. This is one mechanism, the Insider Threat Program. The overall objective here is to be compliant with the National Industrial Security Program and to make sure we protect that classified information. So again, we've suggested a target date of 10 November to have this completed. That's completely up to you and when you think you need to have this done as far as your timelines go, but the final timeline is that 30 November target timeline that's been dictated to us through the industrial security letter. Again, recommend we have that done just a couple of weeks prior in case there's a couple of hiccups. Don and myself are fully available to assist, and we will help our security specialists in every single project as we go forward in developing the insider threat program. So while the security specialist will be your first point of contact, Don and myself are assisting that security specialist in building that insider threat program for you.
All right, to wrap up some of the topics that we've covered here today, we've talked about the national policy references, so the 5 documents listed on that side. The one last document that will get added to that list will be your own company's insider threat program plan, and then those total 6 documents will create the entire library of your insider threat references and directives. We talked about the specific contractor requirements. We've kind of gone through the NISPOM and the ISL and kind of boiled all that verbiage down to, hey, these are the things that you actually need to do. We've developed our process, so we've explained that here's the steps and the order that we'd like to go through in creating these programs for everybody. And we've discussed how to reach out to us, use your security specialist, and then Phil and myself to support them in moving forward and implementing and creating these programs for you.
Thanks, Don. We've had a number of questions come up as we've gone through the presentation. I didn't want to slow or detract from the conversation we were having today. One of the questions that came up is obviously, are the slides going to be available? Yes, they are going to be available. We've presented this session 2 times now, and after the session is completed, we send it out to the attendees of the session. So yes, those slides will be made available to you by the end of today. Another question came up, and I'll throw this at Don. That question is, when is the program to be operational?
Okay. Well, the answer to that is it depends. Although the 30 November date is listed as a deadline, you don't need to actually have your program fully up and running by that date. What you need to have is that implementation plan completed and a date in the future set for when that will be achieved. Now, again, there's going to be some reason. It needs to be within reason. If you're a 5-person company and you're trying to tell DSS it's going to take you 2 years to train everybody, that's not really reasonable. But if you're looking for an extra 6 months to, say, tackle some complexities where you've got different offices and different locations and you're trying to sort some things out, that's certainly understandable, and I don't see DSS having too much of a problem with that. So again, the 30 November date is when you've got to at least provide them with a date when you expect to meet all the requirements, have all your people trained, have the plan actually approved and implemented, and then and have everything up and actually running. It doesn't have to be on 30 November, but by 30 November, you need to have a target date set in the future in which you plan to achieve that.
Okay, thanks, Don. The next question came up was from one of our FOCI companies. If you're not familiar with what the term FOCI is, it's Foreign Ownership, Control, or Influence. That's where a defense company is owned in part or in whole by a foreign entity, that being a foreign government, a foreign company, whether it be Canada, Great Britain, Israel, Australia, somewhere outside the continent of the United States. And that question is, how does FOCI tie into this? I came from a FOCI company, so I'm very comfortable making these statements. FOCI companies, I think, have an advantage here. They are required to monitor their emails. They're required to monitor telephone communications, fax communications, and these communications going from the clear defense unit out to the foreign entity or foreign ownership company are already monitored. They're monitored and they're reviewed on a monthly basis by the FSO of the company. So that's already in place. FOCI companies have this documentation, much of it already created in their special security plans that they have to have and other documentations to mitigate their FOCI. John and I will draw on that experience we have here in-house at Squadron and tie that into the development of your framework and the protection model that we intend to help you create for your insider threat program. Not saying we're going to monitor everything and anything. Again, the program is designed or required under the NISPOM for cleared personnel only. If you have a company with split and split, you've got 50% is commercial, 50% is defense or intelligence community related. The requirement is on the NISPOM side is to only monitor and track and build that insider threat program around the protection of that classified information that your cleared people have. The uncleared folks that you might have in your company, the people that if they have a public trust position or they're working on a government project which does not require a government security clearance or access to classified information, the insider threat program compliances do not apply to those people. However, it is a best practice and a recommendation that I will make here in today that if I were developing this program for a company, I would highly recommend and suggest, since you're already doing the cleared employees, just take everybody and put them into that same bucket and make a more protective shield around your company for many reasons, as opposed to just the protection of classified information. You're also protecting the assets of your company. You're protecting your people, your processes, your tools. You're protecting if you have proprietary information or intellectual property. You can fold this under that program, so it doesn't have to be focused narrowly at what the requirement is today. You can take this and build upon that, and that's what I would recommend we do. Don, next question. How does this work for MFO companies? So MFO companies, that's companies that are multi-facility organizations. If you have an insider threat program officer, and Don, if you can take it from there.
Well, one of the things that that we're directed to do is ensure that the insider threat program senior official is someone that has some authority within the organization. So what they're going to want to see there is that headquarters element has a more senior person in charge of insider threat, and that they're able to leverage that authority and provide direction to the subordinate cage codes under them and supervise the overall management of the program throughout the company. So in a facility like that, you're looking at the insider threat program senior official being at a much more senior level, and part of that corporate management team who's able to provide direction and issue directives and throughout the company and be able to gather the information that they need from wherever that information is located within the company.
Yep, so I'll follow up with another comment on that. If you're an MFO, you can have that one insider threat official at the headquarters level, as Don spoke of, and yes, it's highly recommended that it be a senior, more experienced official. And if you have wholly owned subsidiaries within your multi-facility organization or multiple cage codes tying off from that headquarters element, it's a recommended practice by DSS that each cage code assign its own insider threat program security official. But under the MFO makeup and how the NISPOM paragraphs, as I had mentioned before, those 3 paragraphs, we were very specific in the language we wrote in there, which says, paraphrased of course, you can have one individual assigned at that role to cover your multiple facilities. However, it is recommended that each cage code assign its own insider threat program security official, and that person reports up to that very senior official at the headquarters location. We have another question that came in, and the question is, how is the plan different for non-possessing facilities? Possessing facilities, meaning that you have classified information at your cleared location, at your office. You either have it in a closed area, restricted area, or some type of area. It's in a safe is where it is. It's a little bit different in that, well, let me add on to that. Possessing facilities is just the documentation. If you have IT systems, that is classified IT systems where you possess classified information, the personnel that are, the employees or personnel that are accessing that classified information and or accessing the classified IT system, absolutely have to be part of that insider threat program, as all cleared people are. What the requirement is a little bit more on this, and creates a little bit more complexity to the program we'll have to build together, is that if you have an IT system, you're required to do monthly checks on the IT system. You're required to do monthly or weekly audit checks to create an audit trail and then reviewed monthly. But the weekly checks are done to see who's logged in, who's logged off. You're looking at downloading of information. It's much like what Don described with the Bradley Manning situation. So that will have to be incorporated into your program plan itself.
Yes, and the mere fact that you've got the safeguarding also creates some extra things that you've got to track as to who's going into that closed area, when are they in there. You may have some additional personnel be involved. Someone that sits out at your front desk and maybe is involved in checking folks to see whether or not they're bringing classified into the facility or leaving with classified. Those individuals are also going to be involved. So you've got a couple of extra folks that are primarily involved with the managing of where that classified information is being safeguarded at and the closed spaces that are being used. That just becomes something additional that the facility will need to monitor for its insider threat program.
We have one final question that came up, and it is, are all agencies requiring this? So I'm assuming that the individual asking this question not only has DOD contracts, but has agency contracts, that being one of the three-letter locations, Missile Defense Agency, NRO, one of the several others that are out there. The answer is yes. And that's based on, if you recall, one of the beginning slides on the executive order in that Don spoke about all the agencies that have classified information must have an insider threat program in place, and that translates down to the contractor workforce also has to have one in place. The implementation and driver of that was the NISPOM Change 2 and the ISL, the Industrial Security Letter, outlining the requirement. So yes, all agencies have the requirement. We as defense contractors and the contractor workforce performing unclassified activities must have something in place. The more detailed point of that is DSS has their base model that they've developed and that we've shared with you today, and hopefully we've discussed it in such a manner where we've got a clear understanding of what the requirements are and what we need to do going forward. Agencies have said, and I've sat at the table during these meetings when we first developed this program 2-3 years ago now, each agency representative there, every agency had a person there, their lead security officers for their agencies shook their head up and down and agreed to, in the affirmative, that they would follow what DSS has put out as the baseline requirements. That's not to say that the agency does not or will not add to those requirements. It's the agency's information, so they may want to have some additional measures put in place on top of what DSS has set out as that baseline framework requirement. So I would recommend, if you don't know what that is or what those additional requirements could or may be, relook at your DD-254, that's that security classification specification document. Look at that, see if there's some language in there that talks to insider threat, counterintelligence, or risk management, some of that kind of language, and you should be able to find it. If you don't find it in the DD-254, go back to your contract source material. That's the contract language itself. It'll have a FAR, DFAR clauses. You may want to look in there and see if any updates have been made. I will say that DIA, DISA, NSA, all of those agencies have specific requirements that they've added to this program. I know others have done it as well, but they're slowly wanted to phase into what the insider threat program is. So they wanted to, the agencies that is, wanted to take a look at what DSS is doing, let it go for a period of time, make a judgment on it, check it out, see where it is, do an assessment, and then see if they actually need to add any additional activities to that for the contractor workforce. So long answer, but the answer is yes. Each agency has its own requirements, so look at your contractual documentation to make sure you're compliant with that. That's it for the questions that we have. We very much appreciate you attending our event today. Again, you have Don's information and my information available. Of course, you have your security support specialist information available. We encourage you to reach out to our team at any time as we move along in the next few months. If you know folks that on your team that would like to attend this briefing at some other time, please let us know. Send us a note. We plan to have a couple of follow-up meetings with this, and we intend to post a recording of this event on our website, and that'll be provided to you soon as well. So again, thank you very much for attending the Squadron Defense Group's session on building an insider threat program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.